everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, based on where you are in the world, or good morning. We're thrilled to be here today talking about Owens Corning's YSIP SDG Innovator Program project around embracing retrofits to tackle climate change. So if we want to go to the next slide. We are Josh Strake, that's me, Layla Porzahedi, and Megan Moore, who we're hoping will be back online soon. And we're excited to talk to you today about what we're working on the past 9 months with Jonas and others. So as a company, we are Owens Corning. We're an installation company. We also make roofing products and composite glass for wind blades. I just want to say, Megan, if you can hear us and you want to chime in, please feel free and just take over whenever you're available.
She says she can't see or hear, so sorry about that.
Okay. So we serve residential, commercial, and industrial markets. Essentially, we're a manufacturing company that does a lot around glass and other insulative products, roofing shingles, and composite glass materials that go into wind blades, for example. If you want to go on. So I'm sure we don't need to tell you all that climate change is an existential threat. Everyone here is very aware and tuned into climate change and what's going to happen, what's already happening. The latest IPCC report, of course, is a very recent reminder of that. If you want to go on. And the building sector, as many of you probably also know, is about 40% of global CO2 emissions.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry,
Megan, can you hear us?
I thought it was fixed.
That's okay. I was just doing the building sector slide if you want to just take over, because these are your slides. Megan?
Just keep going, Josh.
I'll just keep going, yeah. Sorry, this is tricky stuff. Anyways, 11% of emissions are from building materials and construction. That's kind of like the operational emissions of companies like ours that make building materials. And then 28% of global emissions come from the actual emissions themselves of buildings as they operate.
If you can hear me, can I talk? Can I start? I can't see anything. I'm sorry, everyone. Okay.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just gonna, sorry, we're talking backstage.
So I guess my suggestion is, Josh, why don't you just keep going, and then that'll just keep the flow going.
So at the building sector here, part of the human activities contributing to climate change are coming from the building sector. And as a building materials company, Owens Corning products have an influence on both areas of the building sector. And we continue to focus on the 11%. And today we're sharing with you how we want to look differently at the 28%. So zooming in on that 28% from building operations, here are a few stats to set up a recommendation. First, the 70% of the North American floor area will still exist in 2050. If they are not retrofitted, they will remain contributing to climate change. Second, the 18% of the US multifamily housing provides an opportunity for retrofits because they can be done at a larger scale. For example, an external panel could create a building envelope for the multifamily housing. Third, there's a gap between the current annual retrofit and the desired annual retrofit. So we need to double that rate. So as we complete our YSIP program, we recommend that we need to embrace retrofits, both to accelerate our influence on the building sector's efforts for climate action and to prepare for future market conditions across the globe. Secondly, we recommend doing this by creating a centralized retrofit-based team to explore the retrofit business models and new products for development within Owens Corning to support the globe.
Great, thank you, Megan, and hopefully we can have some smooth sailing now. Sorry about that issue. So essentially what we think about when we talk about retrofits is retrofits are needed to meet planetary goals. Retrofits are an emerging market condition opportunity, and retrofits are something that our products as insulation manufacturers already can do and our expertise can already contribute to, yet they're also an area that we can organically try and grow and lean into and develop more as a strategic pillar of our company. So this is just a few examples of the legislative push for retrofits. Canada, the US, Europe, should be no surprise. Some emerging things in Asia Pacific as well, if you want to move on. Trying to make up time. So essentially retrofits are something of a win-win here. Retrofits, when you do one as a homeowner or as a building owner, your interior is more comfortable, you save money on utility bills, your home is more valuable for resale, And while you're doing that, you're helping to adapt to climate change's physical impacts through a better insulated home. You're helping to mitigate the impact of climate change because your building requires less emissions. And you're breaking that feedback loop of emissions to fight climate change, contributing to climate change. So breaking that loop is something that retrofits can do. So currently, there are no US manufacturers for scalable retrofit solutions necessarily, like panel type solutions, things that can really scale and affect large buildings and really have big impacts. Competitors are pursuing that market opportunity though, so that's something we need to stay ahead of as well. And retrofitting aligns with our latest business strategy for where we want to be as a company and how we want to adapt for markets that are going to be, how they're going to be in 10 years from now, essentially. So for the SDGs that we sort of focused on here outside of our own walls to try and have this impact in our value chain is 7, affordable and clean energy, 11, sustainable cities and communities, and 13, climate action.
So our main recommendation is to create a team with an Owens Corning that's dedicated solely to retrofits. And this team would then ultimately focus on 3 main areas. One is to change mindsets through communicating the importance of retrofits. Second is exploring new partnerships that could result in new products or processes for us. And then third one is to create new business models that can accelerate climate retrofits. We have identified and explored areas where Owens Corning Retrofit Science Team can get involved in these 3 categories. So we can change mindsets around retrofits through effective communication, and that can be done either by educating on real home models or simulated models that are web-based solutions that homeowners and architects can ultimately go on and use the self-serve website features. There is potential for the team to tap into retrofit specific contractor networks, develop new partnerships with NGOs, to think outside the box and join forces with utility companies to make retrofits an easier, more cost-effective options for homeowners. And then lastly, the team can explore new business models that can make retrofits scalable. And our ultimate vision is for retrofits to be easily achievable to a point where homeowners can choose from a menu of climate solutions for retrofits that align with IPCC's climate targets and goals. So that would require us having all these pieces of the puzzle figured out prior.
1 minute.
Engaging with NGOs and startups is a key emphasis of our action plan. So we see NGOs as necessary facilitators between us and startup companies, and by collaborating with them, we can foster breakthrough innovation and develop new business models that can accelerate action in the area of climate retrofits.
As we complete the WISEP program, we recommend that we need to embrace retrofits, both to accelerate our influence on the building sector's efforts for climate action and to prepare for future conditions across the globe. Secondly, how we recommend doing this is by creating the centralized retrofit-based science team to explore retrofit business models and new products for development for Owens Corning to support the globe.
Yeah, so basically going forward, we have 3 big steps. We need to further these relationships with NGOs and startups for the innovation model. We need to align our strategies with our C-suite executives around retrofits as a strategic pillar, and we need to develop a pilot program to prove the viability of this. So yeah, that's essentially our whole spiel, and we welcome your feedback and your questions, and thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation. And, these little technological glitches obviously happen in this format, but I think that you did a great job recovering, and it came out pretty well. So let's go to the judges, and let's see. I think I'm going to ask Mary to start this time.
Thank you. Great presentation, great detailing into your slides. I think I got everything pretty much clear. I think the only question that I had maybe for clarification was, to what extent do you think retrofits will mitigate the climate change? I didn't get that figure quite correctly. And also, I think you mentioned that no US manufacturer is producing unitized panels. I think there's a value proposition around that, but of course that will come with challenges as well. So how prepared are you as a company to tackle that?
You want to go for that, Layla?
I can go for the first one. So through the research that we did, at least when we were trying to understand the market for retrofits, that 70% number was a really eye-opener for us. And the fact that a lot of the housings in the United States are in fact under-insulated and not to code insulated at least, is going to contribute a lot to that 70%, right? And being able to affect that operational carbon is going to be what determines whether we can reach the climate targets for the building industry at this point or not.
Yeah, and I mean, for example, to reach net zero in Europe, it's a necessary assumption that they will get their building retrofit rate from 1% to 2%. So our goal is to enable that. You know, it's to have products that make retrofits so easy that 2% is a natural outcome, while we still have this organic growth for our business as the one who can offer that solution. To your second question about, the unitized panels and sort of breakthrough alternative retrofitting solutions. Yeah, I mean, without saying too much, I do feel like as a company, we're positioned for that sort of thing. I mean, sustainability is core to our business now and especially into the future. So I think we have the right level of sort of people focused on growth, people focused on sustainability, who can come together and can sort of accelerate these sorts of things. As a company, we have a deep building science expertise, and we've been making insulation for like 80 years. So I do think we're in a good position for that.
Great, thank you for that. And Helen, can I go to you next, please?
Yeah, sure, thanks. It was a super interesting presentation. I'm not very familiar with your area. One of the things I wondered about is I had to, like, what does retrofit mean? I mean, I know that sounds sort of silly, but perhaps as you're working with external agencies that may be less familiar, we can kind of provide an example that's a little bit more straightforward, like, oh, you're going to put insulation in your house walls and take it out, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm like, I got it by the end. I figured it out, but at first, the other thing that I thought I had a few questions around was like, was this going to be focused just on the single family dwelling houses, or sometimes you talked about wrapping large buildings. So I thought, is that apartment buildings? And just kind of comparing some of the statistics and examples you gave that seem to be in larger buildings than versus houses. So I wasn't sure if you were narrowing in on one area or if it was broad. So that kind of left me with a few questions as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting that you wanted retrofits to be like made real for you, because that's what we kind of want to do as one of our solutions in the mindsets pillar, right? I know we only got to stay on that slide for like 30 seconds and it had an hour of stuff we could talk about on it. So that, I apologize for that, but you know, we don't have much time here. But yes, to answer your question about like single family, multifamily, large building, small building, the answer is that we've been thinking about all of them, and it really depends on what the solution is. Like for single family homes, we have some initiatives that we're pitching around contractors. You know, contractors are the people who then come with the insulation and insulate your house or re-insulate it and make it more efficient. But yeah, for multifamily homes, especially like large housing units with hundreds of apartments within them, you don't really do that because there's one building owner, and that person might go with an external cladding panel solution for a retrofit. So it's kind of context specific on what kind of customer we're trying to reach. And our approach is to consider all of them. And that's sort of why our core recommendation is that retrofits need to be this centralized strategy component within the company. Is what we'd love to see. I should be qualifying all my statements.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Thank you. And I appreciate the role of the NGOs as the intermediary will help you kind of work through some of those different things. And speaking as someone who's blown an awful lot of insulation into her attic and redone walls to be a certain R value, I appreciate any help and further advice.
Yeah,
thank you.
That might have been our stuff.
All right, Simon, please take it away.
Yeah, firstly, Josh, nice improv. I could see you were sweating a bit. You'd planned it and it didn't quite, but I thought you did a great job. And sometimes it happens, right? But it was a super professional presentation. And I found that you, because I'm quite close to this subject, and I found that you were one step ahead on each slide. I was like, hang on. And then you got, you came in. So I love that you talk about the data at the beginning with the use and the operation phase, because that's obviously really important, scope 1 and 2 and 3, I guess. One thing I missed a bit was the problem statement. Like, what is the actual blocker to retrofitting? Because I know it. A lot of it is just the thinness of people's wallets, isn't it? Many people just can't afford it to make the upfront cost. So I think maybe you could be clear on the problem statement at the beginning, because I think you then answer that later on. But I think that would be really good. Also, I think it's what you were saying, Helen, as well. The commercial versus the domestic wasn't clear to me. Like, is this big office buildings, or is this, you know, like my house, or what is it? And then I think you could also, one big thing on retrofitting is the green jobs agenda. I wonder if you could add that in, because this will ultimately create jobs in your sector and industry. And I think it makes it an even more powerful proposition. The EU's predicted, what was it? Loads of new jobs, loads of new green jobs coming as part of the renovation wave. So I think that could be really good. And then the last bit was, you mentioned it on one slide, which was the regulatory agenda. Because I guess this is, for example, in the EU with the EU Green Deal and the renovation wave, it's going to be much easier to execute a program like this than it would be in the US. I guess the business case becomes much easier where you've got the regulatory enablers. So maybe just to bring that out a bit more, because I would see that as a key blocker or a key enabler for you. I hope that's valuable feedback.
No, it was. Thank you, Simon. And I think your question about what our problem statement is a very valid one, because it really depends on who the stakeholder is. I mean, what's the problem with retrofits is that if we're talking about the environment, it's that they're not happening fast enough. And if we're talking about contractors, it's that the incentives aren't necessarily there for them to make that their business model, you know, especially with single family homes. You could retrofit 4 single family homes and spend a month doing that, or you could spend a month providing insulation for 100 apartment buildings that are all built exactly the same way. So retrofits, as they have been, they don't scale very well because it's such an individualized model. It's a bespoke service. So our problem statement in that context is, well, how do we take that away? How do we make it easier for people to retrofit? And then you had
Josh, sorry to cut you off, but we're just at time. But great presentation, and I'm sorry about that. We just have strict time. But great presentation. Everything came together really well. Good feedback from the judges, and really supportive comments in the chat too, and also some questions for you. So you might want to peruse the chat, look at the comments, and also look at the questions and see if any of them offer you some helpful insights.
Absolutely. So, please connect with us on LinkedIn also if you want to continue the conversation. And thanks for having us.
Thank you.